Welcome to Ian Cinema, your destination for endless entertainment and unforgettable movie moments. Discover exciting films, inspiring stories, and cinematic journeys across every genre. Whether you love action, drama, thrillers, or timeless favorites, there's always something waiting for you here. Sit back, enjoy the experience, and let Ian Cinema bring the magic of movies to your screen. The Ice Road is a 2021 American action thriller written and directed by Jonathan Hensleigh. The film stars Liam Neeson as Mike McCann and Laurence Fishburne as Jim Goldenrod, alongside Benjamin Walker, Amber Midthunder, Marcus Thomas, Holt McCallany, Martin Sensmere, Matt McCoy, and Matt Salinger in supporting roles. It also marks Hensleigh's first feature film since Kill the Irishman, 2011. The story follows a group of truck drivers who take on a dangerous mission across frozen lakes and icy roads to transport critical equipment needed to rescue workers trapped inside a collapsed diamond mine. The movie was digitally released on June 25, 2021, through Netflix in the United States and Canada, and through Amazon Prime Video in the United Kingdom. It received mixed reviews from critics, and a sequel titled The Ice Road 2, Road to the Sky is currently in production. The story begins when an explosion at a mine in Manitoba traps 26 miners underground. Mike McCann and his brother Gertie, an Iraq War veteran living with PTSD and aphasia, work for a trucking company in North Dakota. Their jobs come to an end after Mike punches a fellow truck driver who mocks Gertie's cognitive condition. Soon after, Mike hears about an urgent opportunity for ice road truckers in Winnipeg, and the brothers apply. Another experienced driver, Jim Goldenrod, agrees to lead the rescue operation and recruits Mike, Gertie, and a young Indigenous woman named Tantu. Also joining the mission is actuary Varney, who handles insurance risk assessment for Katka, the company that owns the mine. A reward of $200,000 is divided among the 4 truckers, the shares to be redistributed among survivors if anyone doesn't make it. Meanwhile, the trapped miners communicate with Katka executives using tap code. Katka's general manager, Sickle, informs them that the company plans to rescue them by blasting a tunnel. The rescue convoy sets out carrying 3 wellheads. During the journey, Goldenrod's engine suddenly fails. While trying to fix the problem, the ice beneath his trailer breaks and traps his leg. Realizing he cannot escape, he convinces Tantu to cut the connection between their trucks, sacrificing himself to save the remaining vehicles and cargo. As the pressure wave moves across the ice, the remaining trucks lose control and roll over, which ultimately helps stop the ice from breaking further. Barney attempts to convince Mike that Tantu caused the accident, but she reveals that her brother Cody is one of the trapped miners. Tensions rise, and when she pulls a pistol during questioning, Gertie disarms and restrains her. Later, Barney reveals his true intentions. He had sabotaged Goldenrod's truck and attacks Tantu. He locks Mike and Gertie inside their trailer, plants explosives in Mike's truck, and drives away. However, Mike and Gertie escape and throw the explosives clear just before they detonate. Believing they are dead, Barney continues with his plan. As Mike and Gertie try to recover their trailer, an equipment failure sends Gertie into freezing water, but Mike manages to save him. Varney later reports to Sickle, who orders him to eliminate Tantu and destroy the final wellhead while making it appear accidental. As Varney prepares to act, Gertie's pet rat, Skeeter, unexpectedly intervenes, giving Tantu a chance to fight back and escape. Mike and Gertie arrive in time and defeat the contractors chasing her. After Tantu's truck runs out of fuel due to Varney's sabotage, Mike catches up and crashes into Varney's vehicle, sending it over a cliff. Barney survives and triggers an avalanche. Using dynamite, Mike and Gertie escape, although Tantu is injured. Leaving her behind temporarily for safety, Mike and Gertie continue transporting the final wellhead. Barney pursues them and repeatedly rams their truck. Mike climbs aboard Varney's vehicle, and after a violent struggle, he knocks Barney unconscious, accelerates the truck, and jumps out moments before it crashes through the ice, ending Varney's pursuit. At the same time, Dantu and Gertie attempt to cross a bridge not designed to carry such weight. They make it across, but the truck begins sliding backward. Gertie sacrifices himself trying to stop it. Mike reaches him in his final moments. In the end, Mike and Dantu successfully deliver the wellhead and rescue the trapped miners. After the truth comes out, Katka's CEO Firesicle, who is later arrested. 3 months later, Dantu is shown working as a mechanic in Goldenrod's former garage. Mike visits in his new gold-colored truck and continues life as an independent contractor delivering sporting goods. As the film closes, Mike cares for Skeeter while driving away, and his truck's license plate reads TRK as a tribute to Gertie. Filming took place in Winnipeg during February 2020. With additional production in Isolde CH8 superscript Haines and Gimli, Manitoba. For the soundtrack, Jonathan Hensel partnered with Big Machine Records to develop a multi-genre album. Scott Borchetta wanted a psychobilly-inspired theme and brought in Nikki Sixx as executive producer. This led to the formation of the supergroup LA Rats, featuring Rob Zombie, John Five, and Tommy Cleoftos. The group released a cover of I've Been Everywhere as a single on May 21, 2021. Released on May 26, We Got the Fight became Gary LeVox's debut solo single and was featured during the end credits of The Ice Road. The soundtrack also includes cover versions of songs originally performed by Johnny Cash, The Cars, Dave Dudley, Hank Snow, and Kathy Masha. In March 2021, Netflix secured U.S. distribution rights to the film for $18 million and released it digitally on June 25, 2021. During its opening weekend, The Ice Road became the platform's most streamed film. Distribution differed across international markets, with services such as Amazon Prime Video handling release rights in countries including the United Kingdom. Critically, the film received mixed reactions. On Rotten Tomatoes, it earned a 44% approval rating based on 89 reviews, with an average score of 4.8. The site's consensus stated that while Liam Neeson continues to prove himself as a reliable action star, The Ice Road follows a predictable path that limits its impact. Metacritic assigned the film a weighted score of 42 out of 100 based on 24 critics, reflecting mixed or average reviews. Some critics were more direct in their disappointment. Alonzo Gerald of The Wrap criticized the visual effects and described the film as overly heavy-handed, suggesting that even Liam Neeson's dependable screen presence could not fully save it. In April 2023, a sequel titled The Ice Road 2, Road to the Sky was announced, with Liam Neeson returning alongside writer-director Jonathan Hensel. The sequel follows Mike McCann as he fulfills his late brother's final wish by traveling to Nepal to scatter his ashes on Mount Everest. During the journey, Mike and his mountain guide become trapped in a dangerous conflict involving Nepalese mercenaries while traveling along the infamous Road to the Sky, forcing them to protect innocent passengers and local communities. The following month, Amazon Prime Video reportedly agreed to pre-purchase international distribution rights excluding Germany for approximately $17 million. Review of The Ice Road. If you enjoyed the reality series Ice Road Truckers but wished it included high-stakes action, sabotage, gunfire, and dramatic avalanches, The Ice Road attempts to deliver exactly that concept. However, despite its exciting premise, the film ultimately lands as a fairly average Liam Neeson action thriller. Released less than 6 months after The Marksman, the movie marks another familiar role for Neeson, playing a tough, experienced man using his skills to rescue people in danger and confront villains. Yet compared to earlier highlights such as Taken or The Grey, the intensity and excitement feel more restrained. Set against frozen landscapes and dangerous conditions, The Ice Road creates strong visual atmosphere through its wide snowy scenery but struggles to maintain excitement throughout its action sequences. The story begins with a devastating explosion at a remote diamond mine in northern Manitoba, Canada, trapping dozens of miners underground. With limited time and resources, A rescue mission is organized to transport specialized drilling equipment across unstable ice roads. Liam Neeson stars as Mike McCann, an experienced ice road trucker leading one of 3 trucks across the hazardous route. Traveling with him is his younger brother Gertie, played by Marcus Thomas, a talented mechanic and Iraq War veteran living with PTSD and aphasia. Joining the convoy are Jim Goldenrod, played by Laurence Fishburne, the veteran trucker coordinating the operation, and Tantu, portrayed by Amber Hunter, a fearless indigenous driver with a personal connection to the trapped miners. Also accompanying the group is a corporate actuary whose motives gradually become questionable. As the convoy moves forward, the drivers must maintain the perfect balance of speed and weight while navigating fragile ice, pressure waves, engine failures, and dangerous cracks that threaten to swallow the truck's whole. Although the film explains these technical dangers in detail, many scenes rely heavily on exposition rather than character development, making several supporting characters feel underdeveloped and difficult to connect with emotionally. Throughout the journey, Mike remains a steady and determined presence, while Neeson delivers another dependable performance. The film gives him limited opportunities to showcase the intensity and charisma that made many of his earlier action roles memorable. Beneath the action, the story touches on themes of corporate greed, responsibility, and the consequences of prioritizing profit over safety, especially in relation to mining operations and local communities. Story summary: The Ice Road is an action-adventure thriller available on Netflix. The film follows Mike McCann, an ice road truck driver who accepts a dangerous mission to transport heavy drilling equipment across rapidly melting frozen roads in order to rescue 26 miners trapped underground in northern Canada. Alongside 2 other drivers and his brother, Mike faces collapsing ice, mechanical failures, violent pressure waves, and human threats far more dangerous than the environment itself. The movie delivers constant tension and survival-focused action while emphasizing themes of compassion, courage, sacrifice, family loyalty, and risking one's life to help others in desperate situations. At the same time, the film contains frequent strong language and numerous scenes of action violence. These include truck crashes, falling ice, gunfire, avalanches, physical fights, drowning risks, cave collapses, and intense life-threatening situations. The story opens with a company inspector discovering that methane detectors at a remote Canadian diamond mine had been shut off due to management believing the danger was minimal. Moments later, a methane explosion traps 26 miners underground, leaving rescuers with only a short window of time to save them. The story shifts to Mike McCann, played by Liam Neeson, a long-haul truck driver and former ice road driver who loses yet another job after defending his brother, Gertie, during a confrontation with co-workers who were bullying him. Gertie, portrayed by Marcus Thomas, is an Iraq War veteran and highly skilled mechanic who lives with aphasia, a condition caused by brain injury that affects communication and speech. Meanwhile, at a remote Canadian mine, disaster strikes after a methane explosion traps 26 miners underground. With time running out and oxygen supplies rapidly decreasing, the mining company turns to an American ice road transport operation led by Jim Goldenrod, played by Laurence Fishburne. Goldenrod assembles a team of experienced drivers to haul massive drilling equipment across dangerous ice roads to reach the mine and clear the methane before the trapped miners suffocate. The reward for completing the mission is $200,000, split among the drivers. The challenge is especially dangerous because it's already April, and the ice roads are beginning to thaw. To improve the odds of success, Goldenrod sends 3 trucks carrying identical equipment, hoping at least one vehicle will survive the journey. Mike joins the mission along with Gertie and a fearless Cree driver named Tantu, played by Amber Hunter. For Tantu, the mission is deeply personal. Her brother is among the trapped miners. As the convoy pushes forward, the team faces relentless challenges including failing engines, unstable ice, violent pressure shifts, and worsening weather conditions. Yet nature isn't their only enemy. Forces emerge with their own agenda and are determined to stop the rescue effort at any cost. The ice road delivers non-stop action and escalating tension, while the frozen landscape presents serious dangers. The greatest threats ultimately come from human interference. The result is a fast-moving survival thriller packed with one life-threatening situation after another. Liam Neeson once again excels in a role that suits him well, portraying an ordinary but resilient man driven by compassion and a determination to protect others. This film also gives his character added emotional depth through his relationship with Gertie. Marcus Thomas gives a powerful and heartfelt performance as Gertie, bringing dignity and emotional weight to a character facing communication challenges. Interestingly, despite portraying a man with aphasia, Thomas himself speaks 5 languages fluently. Amber Midthunder stands out as Dan too, delivering strength, confidence, and emotional grounding while adding welcome balance to the largely male cast. Laurence Fishburne also delivers a dependable performance as the mission leader, while Benjamin Walker effectively portrays the film's ruthless antagonist, whose relentless pursuit creates additional danger throughout the journey. At its core, The Ice Road highlights themes of compassion, sacrifice, courage, and risking personal safety to save others. Several moments emphasize the value of human life and the importance of helping those in desperate circumstances. However, viewers should be aware that the film includes strong language throughout, including frequent profanity. Written and directed by Jonathan Hensleigh's first feature in a decade since Kill the Irishman, the film combines survival drama with high-intensity action. The setup recalls classics such as The Wages of Fear and, in parts, explores a brotherly relationship reminiscent of Mice and Men. As the story progresses, realism gives way to increasingly dramatic action sequences involving collapsing ice, snowmobile attacks, broken bridge cables, avalanches, and escalating confrontations. While entertaining, the film occasionally stretches credibility in favor of spectacle. Filmed entirely in Manitoba, The Ice Road captures the harsh northern environment, though the pacing leaves little room to fully explore the constant danger of extreme cold. Some visual effects vary in quality, but overall the production remains polished and professionally executed. Neeson delivers another dependable performance, supported well by Thomas, Midthunder, Fishburne, and Walker. The orchestral score reinforces the film's larger-than-life tone and complements its blue-collar action style. Ultimately, The Ice Road is an action-driven rescue thriller that follows an urgent race against time after a mine collapse deep in the Canadian North. Though it relies on familiar genre elements and occasionally overcomplicates its story with multiple subplots, it still manages to maintain tension and deliver several effective twists along the way. I'll start with the McCann brothers, who are arguably the film's most complicated and problematic characters. Gertie lives with aphasia, a condition affecting speech and expression caused by injuries he suffered while serving in Iraq. Because of this, Mike constantly interprets his brother's communication and stands up for him when others mistreat or bully him. This relationship forms the emotional core of the story, but at times it feels overly forced. Gertie struggles to defend himself against rude co-workers, yet later proves capable of overpowering enemies in intense hand-to-hand combat while driving a truck. That contrast feels difficult to accept and stretches believability. Where The Ice Road truly succeeds is in delivering big rig action. If you're here for massive trucks and high-stakes driving, the film delivers plenty of it. Writer and director Jonathan Hensleigh, known for films like Kill the Irishman and The Punisher, keeps the trucks at the center of nearly every major sequence. The 16-wheelers battle brutal weather, extreme terrain, and relentless attacks from dangerous enemies. The action scenes, especially the fights taking place on moving trucks sliding across unstable ice, create genuinely exciting moments. The movie does struggle at times with unrealistic CGI. Certain snowstorms and avalanche sequences appear noticeably digital. Even so, the visual effects don't significantly reduce the scale or excitement of the action. Most importantly, The truck sequences look convincing, and that's where the film performs best. It's also refreshing to see Liam Neeson in a different kind of action role. Instead of relying on gunfights or expert combat skills, he plays a rough, working-class hero with determination and grit. Overall, The Ice Road works as an entertaining action film and at times almost feels like a 2-hour showcase for Kenworth trucks. The film was produced by Code Entertainment, Shivhans Pictures, and Envision Media Arts, and premiered globally on Netflix. Set in some of North America's harshest environments, the story draws inspiration from real ice road trucking route as temporary roads built across frozen rivers, lakes, and oceans, sometimes less than 30 inches thick. These routes are known collectively as the Ice Road, and the drivers who travel them often describe the job as dangerously close to a suicide mission. Mike believes he understands the risks. After losing multiple jobs while defending and caring for his disabled but highly skilled brother and business partner, Gurdeep, Mike is desperate for a fresh start. Then an opportunity appears. A company is urgently searching for experienced drivers capable of crossing northern Manitoba, Canada, via the Ice Road. Time is critical. Following an explosion at the Katka diamond mine, a group of miners become trapped underground with only about 30 hours of oxygen remaining. The only hope is to transport an 18-foot gas wellhead and 300 feet of pipe across impossible terrain using heavy trucks. Mike believes he and Gurdeep are the right men for the job, but they can't do it alone. They join forces with veteran trucker Goldenrod, a determined young driver named Antu, and company risk analyst Mr. Varney. Together, the five race against time to deliver life-saving equipment and rescue the miners trapped beneath the Arctic landscape. What begins as a difficult and dangerous assignment soon becomes something far deadlier than anyone expected. Mike remains deeply protective of Gurdeep throughout the film. He even tells a doctor that caring for his brother has cost him previous jobs. When medical staff attempt to give Gurdeep treatment Mike considers unfair, he removes him from the hospital. Mike, Gurdeep, and Tantu repeatedly risk their lives to ensure the equipment reaches Katka in time. Goldenrod recognizes Gurdeep's value, giving him a chance to prove himself as both an exceptional mechanic and a man of integrity. At one point, Mike apologizes to Gurdeep for blaming him for their struggles. Meanwhile, underground, the miners face another nightmare. A methane pocket explodes, killing some workers and trapping the rest with limited oxygen. One miner suggests sacrificing weaker survivors to preserve air, but the idea is rejected. Although the initial disaster is intense, most of the film's violence comes from the truck convoy's deadly journey across the ice. Trucks collide, slide, and crash. One vehicle sinks beneath the freezing water while a man becomes trapped by heavy cables. Fistfights break out repeatedly, and hand-to-hand combat appears throughout the film. Several characters die in violent ways through strangulation, falls, being struck by trucks, or intentional sabotage. Tantu is punched in the face. An avalanche chase creates one of the movie's most suspenseful moments, and another character suffers a severe injury when struck through the chest by a branch. The story also includes moments of harassment, discrimination, and unethical behavior. Gurdeep is mocked and mistreated despite being a military veteran with disabilities. Tantu faces a racist remark because she is Native American. A Veterans Affairs doctor attempts to prescribe narcotics, including opioids and Xanax, without Gurdeep's consent. Corruption and poor decisions from authority figures further put lives in danger. The movie repeatedly asks a simple question: who do you call when everything goes wrong? When a truck is about to plunge into Arctic waters, a broken bar when avalanches closing in, a broken bar when survival depends on impossible choice as a broken bar according to the Ice Road. The answer is simple: call Mike McCann. Because somehow, against overwhelming odds, Liam Neeson's character manages to solve nearly every crisis the film throws at him. And yes, spoiler alert, he manages to pull it off without dying. What a hero. But jokes aside, Mike truly earns that title throughout the Ice Road. His courage, combined with the determination of his brother Gurdeep and their resilient ally Tantu, creates the film's strongest and most admirable element. Beyond that, though, what does this Netflix action thriller really offer? The story presents a handful of characters with genuine strength and integrity, while the rest are driven by greed and self-interest, people willing to do almost anything, no matter how ruthless, to get what they think they deserve. Their methods are brutal, and the dialogue doesn't hold back on strong language either. Fans of Liam Neeson's familiar action hero style will likely enjoy the intense moments and displays of bravery throughout this PG-13 thriller. However, don't expect a particularly gripping plot that keeps you fully invested from beginning to end. And if you're hoping for polished, family-friendly dialogue, this probably isn't the cinematic route you want to take. While watching Netflix's assembly line-style action offering, The Ice Road, I found myself wondering, perhaps with some concern, just how much rest Liam Neeson gets these days. In the previous year alone, he headlined multiple action-driven films, continuing a streak that has defined much of his later career. Throughout the 2010s, he appeared in an astonishing number of projects, reinforcing his status as one of modern cinema's most reliable action leads. Ever since the success of Taken in 2008, Neeson's action persona became a dependable formula, one that sometimes feels repetitive. It's easy to imagine him moving from one set to another, carrying the same determined expression, playing characters that blur together. The Ice Road isn't entirely a copy-and-paste version of those films. There's less revenge, fewer dramatic speeches about special skills, and a slightly different structure. Still, it feels familiar enough that audiences may get a sense of copyright yavu. Watching a weathered Neeson battle harsh, snowy conditions naturally brings to mind stronger films in a similar space, survival thrillers that carried more personality and emotional depth. Here, Neeson plays Mike, an ice road trucker whose character is written with very little that sets him apart. Mike jumps at an opportunity to earn money by joining a dangerous last-minute mission. Together with his brother, he becomes part of a small crew assigned to rescue a group of trapped miners. The journey itself, however, may prove just as deadly as the disaster they're trying to solve. Early in the film, we're introduced to the harsh reality of ice road driving, a profession involving the transportation of massive loads, sometimes weighing around 65,000 pounds, across frozen lakes and thin ice surfaces and under extreme conditions. It's presented as a high-risk job with serious consequences. That setup should create a perfect foundation for suspense. The threat is immediate. One wrong move, one crack in the ice, and everything could collapse. Unfortunately, writer and director Jonathan Hensel doesn't fully capitalize on that tension. Despite an interesting premise and his experience writing large-scale action films, the movie leans too heavily on predictable plotting and familiar genre conventions rather than sustained suspense. Although The Ice Road wasn't originally produced directly for Netflix and what was acquired after filming wrapped, it still carries the flat visual style often associated with streaming-era action releases. At times, it resembles a made-for-TV thriller from years ago, with visual effects that occasionally feel surprisingly underwhelming. The inevitable conspiracy subplot doesn't add much excitement either. Supporting performances offer brief moments of energy, but most of the cast is given very little to work with. There are early attempts to connect the story to broader themes, including social issues and land disputes, but those ideas quickly fade into the background. What remains is a straightforward old-school action movie that rarely rises above familiar genre territory. That's disappointing because Neeson has proven before that this phase of his career can still deliver worthwhile results. Films in this era occasionally revealed sharp performances and entertaining twists. Here, however, he seems to move through the material on autopilot, and audiences may find themselves doing the same. Still, there's a certain appeal to what could be called the classic dad movie, a dependable, uncomplicated entertainment built for relaxed viewing. These are the kinds of films where someone can open a drink, settle into the couch, drift off for 10 minutes, and wake up without feeling like they missed anything essential. In that sense, The Ice Road fits comfortably into the category. The film follows Mike McCann, a veteran truck driver caring for his brother Gertie, an Iraq War veteran living with severe aphasia caused by trauma. When a diamond mine in northern Canada partially collapses and leaves workers trapped underground, Mike joins a dangerous emergency mission to transport a critical wellhead across frozen terrain and attempt a rescue before time runs out. The film centers on the dangerous task of driving heavy trucks across frozen rivers that could collapse at any moment with devastating consequences. This is far from the first time audiences have watched struggling truck drivers transport desperately needed supplies through brutal, life-threatening conditions. Film lovers and longtime moviegoers may remember Henri Georges Clouzot's masterful 1953 thriller The Wages of Fear. That film followed a group of men in South America, all driven by financial desperation, who agreed to transport highly unstable nitroglycerin through the jungle in an attempt to extinguish an oil well fire. In 1977, American director William Friedkin created a remarkable remake titled Sorcerer, starring Roy Scheider. Although it struggled at the box office during the height of Star Wars fever, it has since earned recognition as Friedkin's third major masterpiece alongside The French Connection, 1971, and The Exorcist, 1973. It is difficult to ignore the similarities between The Ice Road and these earlier works. Hensel's screenplay appears heavily influenced by existing material, yet there is no on-screen acknowledgement of either Clouzot's film or Georges Arnaud's original 1950 novel. As a result, the adaptation feels unofficial in spirit. Borrowing and homage have long been part of Hollywood tradition, but The Ice Road occasionally drifts uncomfortably close to imitation rather than inspiration. That said, The Ice Road is deliberately straightforward entertainment. Unlike its predecessors, it does not attempt to recreate the same level of character depth or sustained tension. This is simple, accessible action filmmaking. Liam Neeson delivers the kind of performance audiences have come to expect from him over the last 2 decades as a quiet, rugged, and familiar. The film leans heavily into recognizable genre conventions and rarely tries to challenge expectations. In the 1990s, a movie like The Ice Road likely would have skipped theaters and gone straight to video rental shelves. In 2021, its release strategy differed by region, with Netflix handling distribution in the United States while Australian audiences received a theatrical release. Still, there is something worth acknowledging here. During the era of video rental stores, a film like this would likely have performed very well. There has always been the market for uncomplicated, crowd-pleasing action movies, and The Ice Road succeeds at delivering exactly that experience. Visually, the film is stylishly shot by Tom Stern and supported by a strong, Zimmer-inspired score from Max Arage. The dialogue is functional and effective, even if it rarely stands out. Character development remains fairly limited because the story prioritizes momentum and plot above all else. Movies should be judged not only for what they are but for what they aim to achieve. By that standard, The Ice Road succeeds as a solid, no-frills action thriller. There is an audience for this kind of movie, and there always will be. While it may not inspire repeat viewings, it accomplishes its goal of providing an entertaining one-time experience. There are also a few additional observations, both positive and critical. At 69, Liam Neeson may be pushing the limits of this particular action hero formula, but he clearly remains comfortable in the role. And there is something admirable about continuing to embrace that lane while audiences still enjoy it. The film also includes welcome Indigenous representation through Native American actor Amber Midthunder in a leading role. As for Marcus Thomas portraying a character with a disability, the discussion feels less about casting choices and more about how the disability is represented. Gertie's aphasia comes across as an unusual and somewhat superficial creative decision, and the performance does not always feel entirely convincing. It is also good to see Laurence Fishburne appear in the film, although his role ends up being disappointingly brief. Ultimately, most viewers will probably know in advance whether The Ice Road is meant for them. It understands its audience and stays focused on delivering exactly what that audience expects. A few final thoughts about the film. Liam Neeson's latest release, a modestly entertaining disaster thriller built around a dangerous journey across the Canadian tundra, arrives as a Netflix exclusive experience that never fully reaches its potential, at times held back by weak CGI. The Ice Road follows a familiar formula and works best as lightweight entertainment, enjoyable in the moment but not especially memorable afterward. The film feels assembled from recognizable genre elements and rarely offers anything truly fresh. In another era, it would likely have found a comfortable home as a direct-to-video release, a dependable choice for viewers looking for something easy to watch on a Friday night. The visual effects create an interesting contradiction. Some of the strongest moments happen when the film convinces you that practical filmmaking is being used to capture the danger of crossing unstable ice. Whenever the characters genuinely feel exposed to harsh weather conditions and forced to navigate fragile frozen terrain, the suspense becomes effective and engaging. Unfortunately, exaggerated explosions, unconvincing cracking ice, and artificial-looking avalanches often break that tension and weaken much of the film's action. After a tunnel collapse traps workers inside a remote diamond mine in Manitoba, 3 truck drivers are recruited for a desperate rescue mission. Their task is to transport 3 identical wellheads across dangerously thinning April ice, hoping that at least one reaches the miners in time. Time is running out, and the journey quickly becomes a relentless series of obstacles and near disasters. But what the drivers don't realize is that the threat goes beyond nature itself. Hidden behind the rescue effort is a darker conspiracy. The mining company has allegedly hired assassins to stop them. These killers must make every attack appear accidental, all to conceal the company's own negligence and the shortcuts that may have caused the collapse. With this setup, The Ice Road attempts to blend disaster cinema with a crime thriller, echoing films like Cliffhanger, 1993. Unfortunately, the combination never fully comes together, leaving the story feeling more awkward than suspenseful. Director and writer Jonathan Hensleigh, known for writing Die Hard with a Vengeance and Armageddon, approaches the material with complete sincerity, but his script offers few surprises. The film heavily explains concepts involving methane, mining operations, trucking, and ice road mechanics, only to recycle those details later, usually as convenient plot devices used against the villains. The antagonists themselves come across as unintentionally amusing, and the movie's major mid-story twist is easy to predict long before it arrives. That said, The Ice Road occasionally succeeds in creating tension. When enough problems stack up against the characters, the film can pull viewers into its icy survival drama. Liam Neeson plays Mike, a hardened truck driver caring for his brother Gertie. Marcus Thomas, a military veteran living with aphasia caused by combat injuries, constantly moving from one temporary job to another. The brothers feel like modern versions of George and Len, outsiders struggling to find stability. Neeson delivers the type of performance audiences expect from him: tough, emotionally guarded, and fiercely protective. However, the film's ending takes shortcuts and arrives at a resolution that feels questionable rather than satisfying. Amber Midthunder delivers one of the stronger performances as Stan 2, an Indigenous truck driver with a direct attitude and a past shaped by activism and legal trouble. She brings energy to the supporting cast and helps make the film feel more contemporary. Much of the movie's exposition is shared between her character, Neeson, and Laurence Fishburne's dispatcher role. There's nothing outright terrible about The Ice Road aside from its noticeably weak CGI and formulaic structure. The bigger issue is that it constantly reminds you there are stronger thrillers built around snow, trucks, or even Liam Neeson himself. Films like Cold Pursuit, 2019, with its darker sense of humor and sharper execution, ultimately leave a stronger impression. At its best, The Ice Road feels like a throwback to older action thrillers, but one that relies too heavily on familiar twists and predictable storytelling. The ticking clock setup does generate occasional suspense, especially as obstacles continue piling up, but the overall experience becomes increasingly repetitive. Seeing Jonathan Hensleigh attached as both writer and director initially raises expectations considering his history with late 1990s and early 2000s action films, including Jumanji, Die Hard with a Vengeance, and Armageddon, along with his directorial debut on The Punisher, 2004. Unfortunately, The Ice Road doesn't reach the same level of impact. Instead, it reflects some of the weaker tendencies of that era of filmmaking. The central concept, a team of ice road truckers risking their lives across melting ice to rescue trapped miners, is genuinely compelling. It explores a profession and setting rarely seen on screen and seems perfectly suited for an intense action thriller. However, instead of pairing that premise with a strong budget and a sharper script, the movie feels like a shelved project from years ago that somehow resurfaced unchanged. From the beginning, the production carries the look and feel of a low-budget B-movie. The visual effects are often poor, and the action sequences rarely feel convincing. Whenever the film moves into large-scale set pieces, the explosions and avalanche effects become distracting rather than exciting. Those visual shortcomings weaken both the realism and the sense of danger, making the snowy environment feel less immersive. Some direct-to-video releases have delivered stronger effects, and the climactic truck battle across collapsing ice and a failing bridge ends up feeling unintentionally comedic. After Tantu's truck runs out of fuel because Varney disconnected the fuel equalizer, he catches up to her. Mike intervenes by crashing his truck into Varney's, sending it over a cliff. Varney survives and triggers an avalanche. Using dynamite, Mike and Gertie escape the avalanche, but Tantu is struck by snow and injured by a falling branch. They detach her trailer and continue toward the mine with the remaining wellhead. Varney returns in Tantu's truck and relentlessly rams their vehicle. Mike boards Varney's truck, and the two fight before falling off. Mike gets back inside and attempts to drive away, but Varney climbs aboard again. Mike finally overpowers him, accelerates the truck, and jumps clear, sending the vehicle crashing through the ice and killing Varney. At the same time, Tantu and Gertie cross a bridge never designed to support such weight. They barely make it across before it collapses. However, the truck begins sliding backward, and Gertie is crushed while trying to stop it from falling. Mike arrives and stays with his brother during his final moments. Mike and Tantu ultimately reach the mine in time to save the trapped workers. After the truth comes out, Katka's CEO Firesicle, who is later arrested for his role in the events. 3 months later, Tantu is working as a mechanic in Goldenrod's garage. Mike visits her driving a new gold truck and now works independently delivering sporting goods. As he drives away, he cares for Skeeter, and his license plate reads TRK, a tribute to Gertie and the name he once imagined for a truck. Filming took place in Winnipeg during February 2020 and also included locations in Isolde CH8 superscript Haines and Gimli, Manitoba. For the soundtrack, director Jonathan Hensleigh partnered with Big Machine Records to create a multi-genre album. Label founder Scott Borchett envisioned the psychobilly-inspired sound and invited Nikki Sixx to serve as executive producer. This led to the formation of the supergroup LA Rats, featuring Nikki Sixx, Rob Zombie, John 5, and Tommy Cleoftos. The group released a cover of I've Been Everywhere as a single on May 21, 2021. We Got Fight, released on May 26, became Gary LeVox's debut solo single and played during the film's end credits. The soundtrack also featured covers of songs originally recorded by Johnny Cash, The Cars, Dave Dudley, Hank Snow, and Kathy Masha. In March 2021, Netflix acquired U.S. distribution rights to the film for $18 million and released it digitally on June 25, 2021. The film became the most streamed title on the platform during its opening weekend. International distribution varied by region, with Amazon Prime Video handling release rights in the United Kingdom and selected territories. On Rotten Tomatoes, The Ice Road holds a 44% approval rating based on 89 reviews, with an average score of 4.8. The site's critical consensus states, Liam Neeson remains a top-tier action hero. Unfortunately, like a number of his recent genre outings, The Ice Road is a downhill rundle paved with predictability. On Metacritic, the film earned a weighted score of 42 out of 100 from 24 critics, indicating mixed to average reception. Reviewing for The Wrap, Alonso Geralda criticized the film's visual effects, describing them as unintentionally laughable and writing that The Ice Road is often so clumsy and heavy-handed that even Liam Neeson's dependable screen presence cannot save it. In April 2023, it was announced that a sequel, The Ice Road 2, Road to the Sky, was moving forward, with Liam Neeson returning alongside writer-director Jonathan Hensleigh. The story follows Mike McCann as he fulfills his late brother's final wish by traveling to Nepal to scatter his ashes on Mount Everest. During a bus tour across the dangerous 12,000-foot route known as the Road to the Sky, Mike and his mountain guide become entangled with a group of Nepalese mercenaries. Forced into survival mode, they must protect not only themselves and their fellow travelers but also defend the homeland of nearby villagers. The following month, reports confirmed that Amazon Prime Video planned to acquire international distribution rights for approximately $17 million, excluding Germany. Review of The Ice Road. If you ever watched Ice Road Truckers and thought it needed more gunfire, sabotage, and explosive avalanches to raise the stakes, The Ice Road might sound like the answer. In reality, however, this Liam Neeson action thrill lands somewhere in the middle. Despite its dramatic setup, it never becomes quite as thrilling as its premise suggests. You might wonder how Liam Neeson managed to release 2 action films within 6 months. Following The Marksman, he returns once again as a weathered hero using his familiar set of skills to rescue people in danger and confront villains. But these recent roles lack the intensity and excitement that made films like Taken and The Grey stand out. It has been years since peak Liam Neeson action cinema, and at this stage, even his commanding screen presence can only elevate a film so far, despite the natural dangers and human threats surrounding the story. The Ice Road is surprisingly subdued. Given its setting and high stakes, it never reaches the level of chaos or intensity it seems built for. Jonathan Hensleigh does establish atmosphere effectively, opening with sweeping widescreen shots of vast, unforgiving frozen landscapes. However, the action itself remains largely routine. The story begins with an explosion at a remote diamond mine in northern Manitoba, Canada, leaving around 24 miners trapped underground. As the miners anxiously monitor methane levels and communicate with rescuers by tapping on pipes, critical equipment slowly makes its way toward them. Mike McCann, played by Liam Neeson, joins a 3-truck rescue convoy tasked with transporting massive wellhead equipment across dangerous ice roads, a temporary route scarred over frozen lakes. Riding with Mike is his younger brother Gertie, portrayed by Marcus Thomas, a skilled mechanic and Iraq War veteran living with PTSD and aphasia. Also part of the mission are Jim Goldenrod, played by Laurence Fishburne, the veteran trucker organizing the operation, and Tantu, played by Amber Hunter, a fearless indigenous driver whose brother is among those trapped in the mine, giving her personal stakes in the mission. Accompanying them is a corporate actuary from the city whose motives may not be entirely trustworthy, played by Benjamin Walker. Early on, Tantu explains the delicate balance required to survive the ice roads in April. The trucks cannot move too slowly or too quickly while carrying heavy cargo. Drivers must watch for pressure waves forming ahead and cracks opening behind, thermal hazards that occasionally create genuinely suspenseful moments. Yet while the technical explanations are necessary, the film often relies too heavily on characters standing around discussing procedures instead of building momentum. As a result, many of the characters remain thinly developed and difficult to connect with emotionally. Moments intended to reveal characters such as Mike angrily defending his brother from a doctor prescribing opioids feel more predictable than meaningful. Hensleigh frequently shifts between the truck convoy and the trapped miners, but the miners themselves receive little individual development. Because of the dark underground setting and limited characterization, Distinguishing one from another becomes difficult. Through every setback and confrontation, Neeson remains the familiar stoic lead, although he eventually gets opportunities to engage in physical action. The film rarely allows him to show much personality beyond determination and endurance. We understand that Mike's difficulty finding work stems from his responsibility toward his brother, but the script never fully explains why he would accept such a dangerous assignment in the first place. Buried beneath collapsing ice, gunfire, and the relentlessly dramatic score is an attempt to comment on corporate greed and the exploitation of indigenous land. Unfortunately, those ideas never receive enough depth to leave a lasting impact. Ultimately, The Ice Road is a survival thriller that streams on Netflix and stars Liam Neeson as Mike McCann, an experienced ice road trucker. When 26 miners become trapped in northern Canada, Mike takes on a perilous mission to transport heavy drilling equipment across unstable, melting ice in hopes of saving them. Joined by two fellow drivers including a tough young Indigenous woman and accompanied by his highly skilled mechanic brother, Mike faces stalled engines, fractured ice, and violent pressure waves. But as the journey unfolds, the convoy discovers that the greatest danger isn't the frozen landscape, it's something far more unexpected. The Ice Road delivers an intense, action-packed thriller filled with constant danger and high-stakes suspense. From start to finish, the mission is surrounded by deadly threats that rarely let up, creating a steady sense of tension and urgency. Liam Neeson once again steps into a role that feels perfectly suited to his strengths. He brings his familiar blend of toughness, compassion, and determination to the character, delivering another compelling performance. The supporting cast also performs well, especially Marcus Thomas as Neeson's brother, whose portrayal adds emotional depth to the story. At its core, The Ice Road promotes themes of compassion, sacrifice, courage, and redemption. It emphasizes family bonds, caring for others, and risking personal safety to save lives in desperate circumstances. The story includes moments of quiet faith and selflessness, including a brief prayer during a dangerous situation and dialogue acknowledging one character's sacrifice to save another. The film also presents both pro-business and critical perspectives. While several protagonists are motivated by the opportunity to earn money through dangerous work and pursue independent success, corruption within a large mining company plays a major role in the conflict. Despite these positive themes, the film contains frequent strong language. There are more than 45 instances of profanity, including approximately 32 obscenities, 1 or 2 uses of stronger language, 1 used during the closing credits, several stronger profanities, and additional milder expressions. Because of this content, Movie Guide advises viewers to exercise caution. The action and violence are intense throughout the film. Many scenes placed characters in life-threatening situations. Trucks and trailers traveling across the ice road are pulled into freezing water or threatened by pressure waves moving beneath the ice, causing dangerous cracks and collapses. One man jumps into icy water to save his brother. Methane explosions trigger a cave collapse that traps miners underground. Additional sequences include armed attacks on truck drivers, attempts to force vehicles off the road, an avalanche, truck crashes, dangerous chase scenes across unstable ice, and moments where collapsing structures threaten to send vehicles plunging into deep ravines. There are multiple physical confrontations, including fistfights and characters being knocked unconscious. One intense subplot involves trapped miners debating whether severely injured workers should be sacrificed to conserve oxygen. In one brutal confrontation, the main character kills an attacker during a fight for survival. The Ice Road, streaming on Netflix, is an adventure thriller centered on 3 truck drivers and a mechanic racing across a melting ice road to deliver heavy equipment and rescue 26 miners trapped underground in northern Canada. As the mission unfolds, they discover that the greatest danger is not the environment but a threat they never expected. The story begins at a remote diamond mine in northern Canada. a company inspector discovers that mine workers had been ordered to disable methane detectors after local management judged the danger to be minimal. A sudden methane explosion follows, trapping 26 miners with only limited time before their oxygen runs out. The film then shifts to Mike McCann, played by Liam Neeson, a long-haul trucker and former ice road driver who loses his job after defending his brother Gertie from workplace harassment. Gertie, portrayed by Marcus Thomas, is an Iraq War veteran and highly skilled mechanic living with aphasia, a communication disorder caused by a brain injury that affects speech and language. Meanwhile, the mining company turns to an American ice road operation led by Jim Goldenrod, played by Laurence Fishburne. The plan is to recruit experienced drivers capable of transporting heavy drilling equipment that can release trapped methane and rescue the miners before time runs out. The drivers are offered a share of a $200,000 payment. The mission becomes even more dangerous because it takes place in April, when the seasonal ice roads are already beginning to melt. Jim recruits Mike, Gertie, and a determined Cree driver named Antu, played by Amber Midthunder, to operate 3 separate trucks carrying identical equipment. The strategy is simple: if at least one truck reaches the mine, the rescue can proceed. For Tantu, the mission is deeply personal. Her brother Cody is among the trapped miners. As the convoy moves forward, the team faces one disaster after another: engine failures, cracking ice, melting roots, violent pressure waves, and increasingly impossible conditions. Yet the harsh environment is only part of the danger. Soon, they realize that someone is actively trying to prevent them from reaching their destination. The film maintains relentless momentum, with natural hazards eventually overshadowed by human interference and sabotage. The result is a near-constant stream of suspense and survival. Liam Neeson continues to excel at portraying ordinary but resilient heroes who stand against injustice and fight to protect others. Here, however, his character gains an added emotional dimension through his relationship with Gertie. Marcus Thomas delivers one of the film's strongest performances, empathetic, convincing, and memorable. Interestingly, although his character struggles with communication because of aphasia, Thomas himself reportedly speaks 5 languages fluently. Amber Midthunder also stands out as Tantu, bringing confidence, toughness, and energy to the role. Her performance provides a strong balance to the film's predominantly male cast and adds another layer of emotional investment to the story. Laurence Fishburne delivers another compelling performance as the veteran organizer who assembles the rescue team, while Benjamin Walker makes for a thoroughly frustrating and easy-to-dislike antagonist whose relentless pursuit of the heroes makes him feel almost impossible to stop. At its core, The Ice Road promotes a clear moral perspective, emphasizing compassion, self-sacrifice, and the willingness to risk everything to save others in desperate circumstances. One moment even reflects on how one person gave their life to save another, and during a tense life-or-death sequence, the female driver quietly offers a prayer. That said, the film's content may concern some viewers. It includes at least 46 instances of profanity, among them 2 uses of the strongest language and several other harsh expressions, leading Movie Guide to recommend extreme caution. After enduring harsh frozen landscapes in the previous roles, Liam Neeson returns once again to face brutal northern conditions in The Ice Road. Written and directed by Jonathan Henslow, his first feature behind the camera since Kill the Irishman a decade earlier, the film follows 3 truck drivers tasked with delivering vital rescue equipment to trapped miners in northern Manitoba. The mission quickly becomes a gauntlet of escalating dangers, with nearly every imaginable obstacle standing in their way. The result is an increasingly far-fetched but undeniably entertaining action thriller that may keep viewers engaged even while testing their suspension of disbelief. The film debuted on Netflix in the United States on June 25, while other regions received theatrical and digital releases through local distributors. The story begins at a Canadian diamond mine located hundreds of miles below the Arctic Circle. A methane explosion kills 8 workers and traps 26 more deep underground. With oxygen supplies limited and freezing temperatures closing in, the miners have only about 30 hours to survive before rescue becomes impossible. Jim Goldenrod, Laurence Fishburne, is assigned to assemble an emergency convoy of skilled drivers to transport essential wellheads across dangerous ice roads stretching over frozen lakes. The trucks weigh up to 65,000 pounds, and time is running out. However, the timing couldn't be worse. Most of Goldenrod's regular drivers are unavailable, forcing him to recruit an unconventional team. He bails former employee and Indigenous rights activist Tantu, Amber Hunter, out of jail. She immediately joins because her half-brother is among the trapped miners. Goldenrod also reluctantly brings in Mike McCann, Liam Neeson, an experienced American truck driver who has recently lost another job because of his responsibilities toward his brother Gertie. Marcus Thomas. Gertie is a gifted mechanic and an Iraq War veteran living with PTSD, requiring significant care and support. Goldenrod drives the third truck himself. Their plan is simple: if at least one vehicle reaches the mine in time, the rescue can proceed. But the convoy soon discovers that nature is not their only enemy. Alongside cracking ice and violent snowstorms, hidden human threats begin to emerge. Tantu ends up traveling with Varney, Benjamin Walker, who claims to represent the insurance company but appears to have motives of his own. Meanwhile, back at the mine, Supervisor Chad Bruce becomes increasingly suspicious as conditions deteriorate. Hensley has cited inspiration from The Wages of Fear and of Mice and Men, particularly in shaping the relationship between Mike and Gertie. Yet the ice road ultimately feels less like those tense classics of William Friedkin's Sorcerer and more like the high-energy disaster spectacle associated with Hensley's earlier work on Armageddon. Though Hensley directs with more restraint than Michael Bay, he shares the philosophy that bigger often means better. As the film progresses, realism gives way to a non-stop sequence of increasingly outrageous dangers: avalanches, snowmobile attacks, collapsing bridges, impalements, fistfights, and more. Eventually, the tone starts to resemble a mix of True Lies and Smokey and the Bandit. The difference is that those films embraced their absurdity, while the Ice Road treats its escalating chaos with complete seriousness. Despite being filmed entirely in Manitoba, the movie rarely captures the quiet, suffocating danger of extreme cold. Instead, it prioritizes constant action over atmosphere. The visual effects occasionally struggle under the demands of the spectacle, but overall the production remains polished and competently made, even if it lacks distinctive style. Neeson, less brooding and less isolated than in many of his recent action roles, once again delivers a dependable performance. Considering he remains one of the few action stars thriving commercially at this stage of his career, his presence continues to anchor the film. Marcus Thomas, Amber Hunter, Benjamin Walker, and Laurence Fishburne all perform effectively within the limits of their roles. Max Arage's score delivers exactly the kind of booming orchestral energy expected from this type of blockbuster, while the soundtrack leans heavily into contemporary country music conventions. Ultimately, The Ice Road is a blue-collar action thriller that follows long-haul truck drivers racing against impossible odds to save trapped miners. While it relies on familiar genre cliché tilde copyright-esque, it still offers several surprising twists and maintains steady tension by shifting between the rescue effort underground and the perilous journey across the frozen roads. The film opens with disaster at a diamond mine near Canada's Arctic region. Methane readings trigger concern, but before safety measures can be enforced, an explosion traps dozens of workers beneath collapsing tunnels. Rescue attempts fail, and time begins to run out. Far away in North Dakota, Goldenrod proposes a last-chance solution. Because the rescue equipment is too heavy to transport by air, the only option is a dangerous convoy across unstable Canadian ice, an all-or-nothing mission with lives hanging in the balance. A veteran ice road driver is chosen to lead a convoy of 3 massive trucks across the dangerous frozen terrain of northern Canada. Each truck carries a 25-ton load, making the mission incredibly hazardous as parts of the route cross frozen lakes only inches thick. Mike McCann, Liam Neeson, and his brother Gertie, Marcus Thomas, who is living with the effects of a wartime brain injury, have just lost another job after a confrontation at work. Soon after, they're recruited by Goldenrod to join a critical rescue operation. Alongside them is Jan 2, Amber Hunter, a determined Cree truck driver whose brother is among the trapped miners, and Varney, Benjamin Walker, the company's insurance actuary. Together, they begin the dangerous journey toward the remote mine, but it quickly becomes clear that the clock is not their only enemy. The film introduces several overlapping subplots, some of which feel more exaggerated than necessary. The relationship between the McCann brothers becomes the emotional center of the story, though it occasionally stretches credibility. Gertie lives with aphasia, a condition affecting speech and communication as a result of injuries sustained during military service in Iraq. Mike acts as both protector and interpreter, helping his brother navigate daily life while standing up to those who mistreat him. While this dynamic creates emotional weight, the execution can feel inconsistent. Gertie is portrayed as vulnerable in ordinary workplace situations, yet later displays extraordinary physical capability in intense combat sequences while driving under extreme conditions. Where the ice road truly succeeds is in its action. The film fully commits to the big rig experience, keeping the trucks front and center throughout. Writer-director Jonathan Hensel, Kill the Irishman, The Punisher, builds tension around massive 16-wheelers battling brutal weather, treacherous ice, unforgiving terrain, and attacks from determined enemies. The truck action and fight sequences across cracking ice create several genuinely exciting moments. One noticeable weakness is the visual effects. Snowstorms and avalanches occasionally look overly computer-generated. Fortunately, these moments rarely undermine the overall scale and intensity of the action. Most importantly, the truck sequences remain convincing and visually engaging. Liam Neeson is also refreshing in a role that departs from his usual action persona. Rather than relying on gunfights or expert combat skills, he plays a grounded, hard-working hero who relies more on determination and grit than invincibility. Set in the harshest regions of North America, the story draws inspiration from real ice roads, a temporary routes built across frozen rivers, lakes, and stretches of ice where drivers risk everything to transport supplies. For those who take these jobs, danger is simply part of the profession. Mike believes he understands that risk. After repeatedly losing work while protecting and supporting his mechanically gifted brother, Mike sees this rescue mission as a fresh start. He receives an urgent offer to drive into northern Manitoba after an explosion traps workers inside the remote Katka diamond mine. With only 30 hours before the miners run out of oxygen, a convoy must deliver an 18-foot wellhead and hundreds of feet of pipe capable of restoring airflow underground. Mike believes he and Gertie are the right people for the job, but they need help. Goldenrod assembles the team, bringing in Jan 2 and assigning Varney to monitor risk and operations. Together, the group races across the ice with one goal: deliver the equipment and save the trapped miners. What begins as a dangerous mission soon becomes something far more deadly. Throughout the story, Mike's loyalty to Gertie remains one of its strongest themes. Mike has sacrificed jobs and stability while caring for his brother and protecting him from unfair treatment. Gertie, in return, proves himself to be a skilled mechanic and dependable teammate, earning respect from those around him. Meanwhile, underground, the trapped miners struggle to survive. After the explosion caused by a methane ignition, oxygen becomes scarce and tensions rise. One miner even proposes sacrificing weaker workers to conserve air, though the idea is rejected. Although the disaster creates the central conflict, much of the film's intensity comes from high-speed truck battles across unstable ice. Vehicles crash through frozen surfaces. People fight hand to hand, and multiple deaths occur through falls, crushing impacts, and sabotage. One character intentionally destroys a truck to kill its driver, while others are abandoned in life-threatening conditions. The story also touches on difficult themes including workplace discrimination, racism directed toward Bantu, unethical medical treatment, manipulation, corruption, and strained family relationships. Mike and Gertie's bond is repeatedly tested as they confront both external danger and personal frustrations. Ultimately, The Ice Road delivers exactly what it promises: a tense, high-stakes action thriller built around massive trucks, extreme conditions, and a race against impossible odds. Who do you call when everything starts falling apart? What about when a massive truck is moments away from plunging into freezing Arctic waters? Or when an avalanche threatens to bury you alive? Apparently, the answer is Liam Neeson. Believe it or not, Neeson's character, Mike, somehow manages to overcome all of these disasters and several more throughout the ice road. And yes, spoiler alert, he survives. A hero? Maybe not in the traditional sense, but in this film, Mike certainly steps into that role. His determination, combined with the loyalty and courage of his brother Gertie and their tough, dependable companion Bantu, creates a trio worth rooting for. Still, beyond the heroic moments, what else does this Netflix thriller offer? The film presents a familiar contrast. A handful of characters display resilience, integrity, and courage, while others are driven entirely by greedy, ruthless, money-obsessed people willing to do anything to claim what they believe they deserve. Their methods are brutal, and the dialogue doesn't shy away from strong language. Fans of Liam Neeson's action-heavy style will likely enjoy the tense situations, daring rescues, and displays of grit throughout this PG-13 thriller. But anyone expecting a gripping, unpredictable plot may find themselves disappointed. And if clean-cut heroes and family-friendly dialogue are your preference, this might not be the cinematic road worth taking. Watching The Ice Road, I found myself wondering, perhaps with some concern, just how much sleep Liam Neeson gets these days. At 69, Neeson continues to lead one action project after another. In just the previous year alone, he headlined multiple explosive thrillers and dramas, adding to a remarkably busy decade. Throughout the 2010s, he appeared in an astonishing 33 films. Ever since Taken transformed him into a reliable action star in 2008, his screen persona has become increasingly familiar. A hardened, capable veteran moving from crisis to crisis with calm efficiency. At times, it feels as though he's simply stepping from one set to another, carrying the same rugged character with him. To its credit, The Ice Road isn't entirely assembled from the same formula. There's less revenge, fewer speeches about special skills, and a slightly different setting. Even so, the experience remains familiar enough to feel like territory Neeson has already explored many times before. Seeing him battle snow, ice, and impossible conditions inevitably recalls stronger entries in his filmography, particularly the gray and cold pursuit of films that carried a distinct identity and emotional weight that this one struggles to achieve. Neeson plays Mike, an ice road driver whose character is written so broadly that he often feels more like an archetype than a fully developed person. When an emergency mission suddenly needs experienced drivers, Mike sees an opportunity to earn money and joins the effort. Together with his brother, he becomes part of a rescue team attempting to save trapped miners, but the dangerous conditions make survival uncertain. Early in the film, viewers are reminded just how dangerous ice road driving really is. Drivers haul vehicles weighing roughly 65,000 pounds across frozen lakes and stretches of ice that may be less than 30 inches thick, a profession with enormous risks and a reputation for high mortality. It's a genuinely strong setup for a thriller. Danger is built directly into the environment. Every crack in the ice could mean disaster. Unfortunately, writer-director Jonathan Hensleigh, whose previous credits include Jumanji and Armageddon, doesn't fully capitalize on that tension. Aside from a few effective moments, the suspense often gets buried beneath the predictable plot packed with familiar genre ingredients. Although the film wasn't originally produced for Netflix, it carries the look and feel of a standard streaming release. visually flat, occasionally dated, and sometimes undermined by unconvincing CGI that gives parts of it the appearance of an older television movie rather than a modern action thriller. The inevitable conspiracy subplot feels equally uninspired. Even the presence of actors like Laurence Fishburne and Holden Callahan isn't enough to inject consistent energy into the story. Hensel briefly hints at more meaningful themes touching on issues such as the opiate crisis and indigenous land disputes, but these ideas fade quickly. What remains is a straightforward action movie that feels closer to an old-school 1980s action flick than something with lasting impact. That's unfortunate because Neeson has delivered genuinely memorable performances within this phase of his career. Films like Non-Stop offered entertaining thrills, and The Grey demonstrated impressive emotional depth, but The Ice Road ultimately feels like another routine entry, competently made, financially safe, yet offering little that truly stands out. Neeson moves through the material with professional ease. The audience, however, may feel tempted to do the same, and so we arrive at one of cinema's most enduring categories, the dad movie. Reliable, familiar, and comfortably predictable. The dad movie exists for viewers who want straightforward entertainment as something to watch with a drink in hand or even drift in and out of during an afternoon nap without missing anything essential. As my father-in-law likes to say, that was the best movie I've ever slept through. With The Ice Road, he may have found a worthy contender. Liam Neeson stars as Mike McCann, a veteran truck driver who supports his brother Gertie, an Iraq War veteran living with trauma-related aphasia, as they embark on a dangerous mission across unstable frozen terrain. When a diamond mine in northern Canada partially collapses, leaving injured miners trapped underground, Mike and a team of drivers are sent on a high-stakes mission to deliver a replacement wellhead that could save their lives. To do it, they must drive massive trucks across frozen rivers and ice roads that could break apart without warning. This premise is hardly new. Audiences have seen stories of desperate truck drivers transporting vital cargo through extreme and life-threatening conditions before. Film enthusiasts and longtime moviegoers may immediately think of Henri Georges Clouzot's acclaimed 1953 thriller The Wages of Fear. That film followed a group of financially desperate drivers in South America tasked with transporting unstable nitroglycerin through dangerous jungle terrain to extinguish an oil well fire. In 1977, American director William Friedkin revisited the concept with Sorcerer, starring Roy Scheider. Although it struggled at the box office during the height of Star Wars fever, it has since earned recognition as one of Friedkin's finest works alongside The French Connection, 1971, and The Exorcist, 1973. With those comparisons in mind, it is difficult not to notice how heavily Jonathan Hensel's screenplay appears influenced by earlier works. There is no on-screen acknowledgement of either Clouzot's film or Georges Arnaud's 1950 novel, making the adaptation feel unofficial at best. Borrowing and reinterpreting ideas has always been part of Hollywood tradition, but The Ice Road occasionally drifts uncomfortably close to imitation. That said, The Ice Road has no ambitions of being especially layered or complex. It strips the concept down to straightforward action and survival, sacrificing the emotional depth and sustained tension that made those earlier films memorable. This is uncomplicated, crowd-pleasing entertainment. Liam Neeson delivers another performance in familiar territory, bringing his usual rugged intensity to the role. The film rarely moves beyond recognizable action thriller conventions, and many of its characters lean heavily into established archetypes. Had this movie been released in the 1990s, it likely would have skipped theaters and found its audience in the home video market. In 2021, however, release strategies varied globally, with Netflix handling distribution in the United States while other regions received theatrical releases. Still, there is something worth appreciating here. Back in the days of video rental stores, The Ice Road would probably have been a dependable hit. There has always been an audience for simple, accessible action films, and this one knows exactly how to deliver that experience. The film is attractively shot by Tom Stern and supported by a strong, Zimmer-inspired score from Max Arage. The dialogue is serviceable rather than memorable, and characterization remains minimal because the narrative stays tightly focused on keeping the plot moving. Movies should often be judged not only by what they are, but by what they aim to achieve. By that standard, The Ice Road succeeds as a straightforward, no-frills action thriller. There is an audience for this kind of movie and always has been. While it may not inspire repeat viewings, it accomplishes its purpose effectively in the moment. There are, however, a few additional observations worth noting. At 69, Liam Neeson may be reaching the point where action-heavy roles become less convincing physically, but he still appears comfortable in this space and committed to delivering exactly what his audience expects. The film also includes welcome Indigenous representation, with Native American actor Amber Hunter taking on the female lead role. As for Marcus Thomas, who plays a character with a disability, the issue is less about casting and more about execution. Gertie's aphasia feels like an unusual and somewhat underdeveloped narrative choice, and Thomas's performance does not fully sell the emotional weight of the role. Laurence Fishburne also appears in the film, although his screen time is unfortunately limited. Ultimately, you probably already know whether The Ice Road is your kind of movie. It understands its target audience and delivers exactly what it promises. A few final thoughts. Liam Neeson's latest is a modestly entertaining disaster action film built around a dangerous journey across the Canadian wilderness. Released primarily through Netflix, it works in bursts rather than consistently, at times weakened by uneven CGI. The Ice Road follows a familiar formula and functions best as light, disposable entertainment, engaging enough in the moment, but unlikely to leave a lasting impression. It feels assembled from recognizable genre pieces rather than offering anything truly fresh. In another era, this is the sort of movie that would have gone straight to DVD or box and become the reliable Friday night pick for viewers wanting uncomplicated entertainment without overthinking the choice. The rough-looking visual effects add an unusual layer to The Ice Road. Ironically, some of the film's strongest moments come from exactly what the title promises: the dangerous, unpredictable ice roads themselves. Whenever the movie successfully creates the illusion of practical filmmaking and places the audience inside these harsh conditions, it becomes far more engaging. When it feels like the characters are truly battling the elements, navigating unstable late-season ice and brutal weather, the tension becomes genuinely effective. Unfortunately, that immersion doesn't last. Weak CGI explosions, unrealistic ice fractures, and unconvincing avalanche sequences quickly pull viewers out of the experience and undermine much of the suspense the film works to build. The story begins after a tunnel collapse traps miners inside the remote diamond mine in Manitoba. To rescue them, 3 truck drivers are assigned to transport 3 identical wellheads across thinning April ice, ensuring that at least one reaches the site in time. The pressure is immediate and the clock is ticking, and every possible obstacle stands in their way. But there's an unexpected twist. Unknown to the drivers, the mining company has secretly arranged for hired killers to sabotage the mission. Their goal is to eliminate the rescuers while making every incident appear accidental, all to cover up the company's negligence and the shortcuts that caused the disaster in the first place. In concept, The Ice Road combines a disaster film with a crime thriller in a way that recalls Cliffhanger, 1993. However, unlike that film, these elements never fully come together, leaving the final result feeling more awkward than exciting. Director and writer Jonathan Hensleigh, known for his work on Die Hard with Vengeance and Armageddon, approaches the material sincerely but delivers a screenplay that rarely surprises. The movie heavily explains concepts surrounding methane, mining, trucking, and ice road operations, only to recycle those details later in predictable ways, often turning them into convenient tools against the villains. The antagonists themselves end up feeling unintentionally funny, and the film's central twist is easy to anticipate long before it arrives. Still, There are moments where the ice road manages to build enough pressure and escalating problems to draw viewers into its icy survival drama. Liam Neeson plays Mike, a hardened and aging truck driver who cares deeply for his brother Gertie. Marcus Thomas, a military veteran living with aphasia caused by combat injuries, moving from job to job and often rejected by legitimate employers. The brothers form the emotional core of the story. Neeson largely delivers the performance audiences expect from him, a rugged, no-nonsense protector carrying emotional baggage. However, the film's resolution feels somewhat forced and offers an unsettling shortcut to resolving the brothers' struggles. Amber Hunter gives one of the more memorable performances as Tantu, a capable indigenous driver with a history of legal trouble tied to activism. She adds energy and personality to the supporting cast while helping carry much of the film's exposition alongside Neeson and Laurence Fishburne's dispatcher character. There's nothing truly terrible about The Ice Road beyond some distracting CGI and familiar storytelling choices. The bigger issue is that it constantly reminds you that stronger thrillers already exist involving snow, trucks, or Liam Neeson himself. In many ways, Cold Pursuit, 2019, delivers a sharper and more entertaining experience. At its best, The Ice Road feels like a throwback to older action thrillers, recycling familiar beats and twists while fitting comfortably into Liam Neeson's recent catalog of survival action films. The constant obstacles and countdown structure to create moments of tension, but overall the story unfolds in a predictable and often sluggish manner. Seeing Jonathan Hensleigh attached as both writer and director initially raised expectations. After all, he contributed to major action titles from the late 90s and early 2000s, including Jumanji, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Armageddon, and later directed The Punisher, 2004. Unfortunately, The Ice Road never reaches that level. Instead, it captures many of the weaker traits associated with that era of filmmaking. The premise itself is strong, a team of truck drivers risking their lives across melting ice to deliver equipment and save trapped miners. It's a setting and profession rarely explored on screen and one that should naturally lend itself to an intense action thriller. Yet the execution never matches the potential. Rather than feeling like a modern update of the concept, the film comes across as an old script pulled from storage and produced without the budget or refinement needed to make it work today. From the start, the movie gives off low-budget B-movie energy. Its visual effects repeatedly distract from the action, and large-scale sequences often fail to create any real excitement. Explosions, avalanches, and ice destruction all look artificial enough to weaken the danger and remove any sense of realism. Even the climactic truck sequences across collapsing ice and bridges feel more unintentionally amusing than thrilling. The action itself lacks distinctive direction or choreography. At a time when action filmmaking has evolved considerably, The Ice Road doesn't offer enough creativity in its staging, pacing, or editing to stand out. Its slow pace only stretches an already lengthy runtime. What begins as a straightforward survival mission gradually becomes overloaded with unnecessary complications and extended action scenes that make the film feel longer than necessary. Early on, there's genuine promise in watching a small group of truckers battle impossible conditions to save lives. The film hints at stronger character-driven storytelling through the trapped miner's struggle for survival and Mike's relationship with his brother Gertie, whose trauma continues to shape his life. Those ideas are present, but unfortunately, they never become as compelling as they could have been. At first, The Ice Road appears to set up a gripping man versus nature survival story, but it eventually abandons that premise in favor of a predictable corporate corruption twist. As a result, the film shifts into what feels like one of Liam Neeson's most exhausting near-revenge narratives to date. The repeated cutaways to the trapped miners don't add much to the overall experience. Their storyline rarely contributes anything meaningful that isn't already being explored through Neeson's central group. Similarly, the film's attempt to create conflict through racist distrust aimed at Tantu, Amber Hunter, feels underdeveloped and problematic. using races more as a convenient plot device than exploring it with any real depth. As the journey continues, the rescue mission becomes tangled in an increasingly convoluted corruption storyline. The extreme lengths the company goes to in order to stop the team from reaching the miners quickly become unbelievable and uninspired. Unfortunately, both the writing and performances struggle under the weight of these weak narrative choices. Liam Neeson delivers what may be one of his least convincing performances in recent years. His portrayal feels exaggerated and difficult to take seriously, though it's hard to place all the blame on him considering the uneven dialogue he's given. Attempts at humor also miss the mark and often clash with the film's more serious moments. Most of the supporting cast suffer from thin characterization, leaving little room for meaningful arcs or emotional depth. One of the film's biggest missed opportunities is its limited use of Laurence Fishburne. The chance to see him and Neeson share more screen time is largely wasted. The movie also spends too much time focusing on its uninspired villains and explaining their motivations for trapping the miners. In the end, their storyline feels generic and fails to create any real investment. At times, the only way to enjoy the performances and dialogue is to approach the film with a so bad it's entertaining mindset. Overall, The Ice Road stands among Neeson's weaker recent projects. With inconsistent visual effects and a tired story, it feels like an action thriller pulled straight out of the early 2000s direct-to-video era before eventually finding a home on streaming platforms. That said, the film still has qualities that make it watchable. Set after a remote diamond mine collapses in northern Canada, the story follows veteran ice road driver Mike as he leads a dangerous rescue mission across frozen terrain to save trapped miners before time runs out. Viewed another way, The Ice Road feels like the unofficial third chapter in Liam Neeson's icy action collection of Following the Grey and Cold Pursuit. The films share no narrative connection, but all place Neeson in harsh winter environments, a setting he seems especially comfortable in. While the movie may not leave lasting impression, it works reasonably well as easy Saturday night entertainment. It's been some time since audiences have seen an old-school trucker action film in the spirit of Black Dog. And although The Ice Road never reaches classic status, it still delivers enough action to stay engaging. Neeson once again settles comfortably into the role of the hardened, world-weary lead. Mike is tough, practical, and fiercely protective, especially in one standout moment where he defends his brother Gertie without hesitation. Gertie, played by Marcus Thomas, turns out to be one of the film's stronger characters. Despite living with disabilities following military service, he remains resilient, capable, and genuinely likable. Mike acts as both brother and caretaker, and the relationship adds some welcome emotional grounding. The rescue mission begins when the brothers are hired to cross Manitoba's dangerous ice roads to deliver equipment and save trapped miners. Alongside them is Jantu, played by Amber Hunter, whose hardened personality hides deep loyalty and determination to rescue her own brother. Jantu's inclusion gives the story a distinctly Canadian identity. As an Indigenous character, she faces prejudice from members of the crew, adding another layer of conflict to the journey. Laurence Fishburne appears in a smaller role but, as usual, adds weight and presence whenever he's on screen. For the most part, the film moves at a steady pace and includes several exciting stunt sequences, particularly during the finale. Some of the CGI effects look noticeably average and occasionally reduce the sense of realism, but the action remains entertaining. The villains are easy to dislike, and while parts of the conspiracy stretch credibility, the central idea remains just believable enough to keep the plot moving. Spoiler warning: one of the film's more frustrating choices comes near the ending involving Gertie. Earlier, the movie already builds tension through a near-death moment that Mike helps him survive. Having the character actually die later feels unnecessarily harsh. A more satisfying ending might have allowed both brothers to survive and finally achieve their goal of owning their own truck together. The script could also have benefited from sharper dialogue, Although Neeson still gets a few memorable action movie lines that fit the tone, the musical score includes strong orchestral moments that make the film feel larger in scale and even delivers a recognizable theme, something increasingly uncommon in modern action films. In the end, The Ice Road is an enjoyable ride in the moment, packed with action sequences and another familiar Liam Neeson performance. It asks viewers to suspend disbelief more than once. But for those looking for straightforward escapist entertainment, there's enough here to make the trip worthwhile. Film details directed by Jonathan Hensel, written by Jonathan Hensel, produced by Bart Rosenblatt, Shivani Rewat, starring Liam Neeson, Benjamin Walker, Amber Midthunder. Cinematography, Tom Stern. Edited by Douglas Grice. Music by Max Arich. Production companies, Code Entertainment, Shivhans Pictures. Distributed by Netflix. Release date, June 25, 2021. Running time, 108 minutes. Country, United States. Language, English. Box office, approximately $7.5 million. That wraps up today's review of The Ice Road, 2021. If you enjoyed it, feel free to support the channel by subscribing, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.